Before we start this video, a large thank you to Swallowtail, Nick, MD, Mr. Pulsar, Matthew, a name I unfortunately cannot pronounce. Thank you for the support, my friend. Who's Kite? Nick Russell, another name I unfortunately cannot pronounce. Thank you for the support, my friend. Lucas and Aiden for their support. I hope you guys enjoy the video. Hello guys, now let's finish this refactor up here with the item actions. Now I was going to make a timestamp here if you want to skip this, but I encourage you to not, because I'm also going to make some adjustments to how we handle spells and archery so we can also allow our AI to do so. So I'm just going to go through this and commentate over as I do the process. I might not explain everything I'm doing because again, this is very similar. We're essentially changing the player manager variable to a character manager variable on all of our item action scripts. And in an instance where we require the player manager instead, we're going to cast the player manager variable. And if it's not null, we're going to do the normal logic. And if it is null, we're going to do the logic that does not require a player manager. Now, in some instances, this will basically have us make an AI version and a player version of some logic on this script. But we'll cross that bridge when we get to it. It's not complicated. We just essentially make a check to see if the player is null. If it is, we know it's an AI trying to process logic. If not, it is the player. So again, just continually change player to character, sorry. And right here, wherever you see the word player, I'm under magic spell action right now, change it to character. Now you're going to see that we actually require quite a few scripts to attempt to cast a spell here. And this is because this logic is very, very, very old, very early in the series. We haven't touched in a long time. I'm actually going to change that this episode too. So we're going to make it so casting a spell only requires one variable to be taken in, that of a character manager, instead of requiring an animator manager, stat manager, or weapon slot manager. If we're using a left hand or not, basically we can get all these things from the character manager. So I'm actually going to go to attempt to cast spell. And right here, this is on the spell item script. And you can see we have a virtual void for attempt to cast spell and successfully cast spell. So what I want you to do on these scripts is change everything here. So you can see we require an animator, a stats manager, and a weapon slot manager on both. And we require to know if we're using our left or right hand. Again, this is old. So we're actually going to erase all of this. And I'm just going to simply say character manager because we can get all of this logic from our character manager, including the script extensions. And this makes this not only a lot simpler to call, but a lot neater as well. So let's just say character manager. And obviously this is going to break the classes that derive from this, which should be healing spell and projectile spell, but we'll fix those two in this video. So again, just say character manager, and I'm going to call this character. And right now, player stats for deducting focus points. I'm not entirely sure if we have that on the base class. We don't, and we're not actually going to have focus points for our AI anyway. At least I don't think Souls does. So what we can do is just say character stat manager. Yeah, no, we don't. I just wanted to check that there. So now we can do a cast very simply, as I had described before. So we can come up here and change this back to player. And then we can just simply say right here, we can make a variable of type player manager. And we can say player manager player is equal to character as a player manager type script. And this just checks basically if the character manager is actually a player manager, the one calling this logic. And if it is, then we know it's not null, and then we can deduct focus points. Otherwise, continue on as usual. All right, simple enough. Let's go. Now, I'm just going to start clicking these errors one by one. So the first one here is magic spell action. As you can see, we don't need all of this. This is why it's giving us an error. Just pass the character because we deleted all of those unnecessary variables. Okay, moving on. Clicking here, and we have the perform action, so the charge attack action. Again, same principle here. Change this to character manager. Rename the player to character, and let's check. I think there is an instance here we can actually delete something, so let's see. Change player to character. Whoops, copy this. Change this. I'm gonna take a sip of tea. Okay, so yeah, we actually I don't know why we're setting the combo flag here. That's not required. Not at all. So, and again, we don't need to set it there. So I'm going to change that too. So we can say character.canDoCombo equals false. I can't recall if that's there for a reason. I think yes, it is because it's there, so we can't attempt to do another combo. So we can erase this, and that's fine. And also, it goes without saying, if anything is broken here after we get around to testing this, then it will be fixed in a housekeeping video, everything at once. So if you guys find any bugs after completing this video, comment below, and I will fix them. So change this to character manager. and then rename the player to character. There we go. Looks good. Yep, so we don't need to check down here for the two-hand flag from the input manager. We can just simply say if character dot is two-handing weapon. There we go, and this will apply for both the player and the AI. All right, looks good. Let's just change all these players to characters. And I realized too that a lot of this is the same thing. It's very easy to miss something, so be careful. Don't go too fast. I mean, if you miss something, though, you will likely figure it out rather quickly. Okay, so change player manager to character manager again, rename. So again, we don't need to check the input handler for a combo flag because the AI doesn't have one. So we're going to check, for the two-hand flag, sorry, or that was the combo flag. So we check character dot can do combo. This looks good. All right, and again, just changing the word player to character. So I'm actually going to talk over this now for a second. Here's the plan moving forward. We're going to finish the refactoring of this in this video, and I'm going to create the attack state, the new version of the attack state, and we're going to make it so that's all working and we don't have any errors. And then in the next video, we're going to set up our AI for the knight personality and the archer personality, and we'll make it so they are fully functioning with attacks depending on their type, and we might even jump into also allowing them to dodge or block. So this is going to still have a few videos in this series because we have to cover rolling and dodging and riposting and backstabbing and all that stuff. I don't suspect more than 2 more at this point with the rate that we're going right now. This process takes a long time, obviously, because we are rewriting like lots of code, dozens and dozens and dozens of lines of code, because these systems need to be more modular and need to be better suited for our more advanced AI. All right, so now let's double click. This obviously though is the nature of the beast. I'm sure a lot of you know that if you've been programming for a while. Things are constantly changing. As you add new systems, you have to make things more adaptable or more modular. So there we go. Okay, so we need the attempt, backstab, or riposte. Let's actually go to the character combat manager, the player combat manager rather, and let's make that function neutral to everything. So let's put it on the character combat manager so we can call it from the AI. So just basically, I'm just going to copy everything here. I don't need it all, but I'm just going to see what I do need. I'm going to paste it all down here. I'm pretty sure I only need a couple of these, so let's see. What do we have here? So we don't need drain stamina based on attack, and the block is an override, so that can go back, because that just overrides the base block, because we're also affecting our stamina bar. So that looks good. Now, we don't need drain stamina based on attack because AI don't typically have stamina in Souls games, to my knowledge. So unless you guys want that, you can put that in there. It would just be as easy as basically replacing the word player with character, and that's it. You'd also have to make an exception and an override on the player combat manager where you update the stamina bar. But other than that, yeah, if you want to do that, it's pretty straightforward. I'm not going to do that. So I'm just going to copy this and remove it and put it back in the player combat manager. And now what's next? So that is only player logic. Okay, so this looks to be the attempt, backstab, or riposte logic. Yes, it is. So this should be usable across the AI or the player. And also successfully cast spell, just change player to character. And remove all of those variables because we only need the character manager now. And successfully casting a spell should be applicable across the board for both player and AI. So just character, and there we go. All right, attempt, backstab, or riposte. When we made this code, I'm relatively sure that this will work fine just by changing player to character. There is a couple of things we're going to adjust in the future to make it more easily detectable for the AI, but we're not going to worry about for that right now. We'll worry about that when we get to the video where we specifically handle backstabs and ripostes. Right now, this critical attack raycast start point, it's on the input handler. This needs to move because now the AI is going to need one as well. This is basically the point where a raycast starts on your character to determine where it's coming out of your body from, to look for the backstab or riposte layer. So what we're going to do is take that away from the input handler and put that on the character manager. So again, when you go to look for a backstab, you're firing a raycast to see if you're basically behind an enemy, and this is where the raycast starts. Typically, it will start from the chest area or the upper body. So I'm just going to make a header called raycast, and I'm just going to put this here in the character manager. Now, the variable will be null right now, so make sure you do replace that eventually. I'm going to do it when we get around to doing AI crits. So character dot critical attack rate at start point. That's good. Backstab layer. Okay, so go back to the player combat manager, and now you have the backstab and riposte layer. Copy that, bring that back to the character combat manager. And I think right now we should be good. That should be most things taken care of, and now it is just the process of replacing the word player with character. I'm going to take a sip of tea. Okay, so I'm just going to read this over real quick while I'm changing this. Looks good. Looks good. So we're going to have to make basically a small exception for the AI because the AI is going to work a little bit different than the character, but this logic will still work. I'm just going to make it a bit lighter and nicer when we get around to actually working with it. And if you guys want, this is really important, so please comment below if you want this. You notice now we handle blocking using a dot formula. Well, we could also get rid of our backstab and riposte colliders and use that same dot calculation to detect if we're in front or behind a player when they can be backstabbed or riposted. This is how I'm doing it in Nephilim. That's my project with Rob and a couple other people. So if you guys want me to do that in this project, it just removes 2 more colliders from the character. I can certainly do that. Just comment below. If it's something you don't really care about, we can move on. I like it personally because it's using an angle calculation rather than looking for an actual collider. But both work very well. There's, they both have their time and place. All right, so let's go and move on. This is the miracle spell action. Replaced player manager with character manager. Right click on the word player, rename character. Now, this is just, again, a simple changing the word player to character. We're just checking to see if we have a fate spell in the inventory and if we have enough focus points. And if we do, we are going to cast a spell. And if we don't, we're going to shrug. So, I just realized I didn't need to change all those to character because this only takes in one variable now. It's just the character manager. All right, so that's good. All right, save and move on. Let's go to the next one. We're starting to cut down on them now. Let's hit this one. Okay, so this is a parry action. Very simple. Again, replace player manager with character manager. Rename the word player to character. I'm going to take a sip of tea. Okay, so raise hit and not care for weapon. Yes, that's important. Good, good, good. And character animator manager. Okay, looks good. Now clear and do the next one. So this one is a pyromancy action. It is the exact same thing as the miracle action. Just change the word character or player to character. And again, we are checking to see if we have a pyro spell in inventory. We're checking our focus points. If we do, then we're casting a pyro spell. If not, we are playing the shrug animation. Okay, that looks good. That looks good. And don't make the same mistake again, Seb. Oh, that looks good. And this looks fine. And I just did it again. Erase all of this. You only need to pass the character. That's character inventory manager. Forgot the I there. All right, save. Okay, so next, let's go. And this brings us to the draw arrow action. Okay, so this one is going to be fine. It's the same thing, but the fire arrow action is where we're going to start to get things happening that we need to make some discernment between the player and the AI. And this is because to fire an arrow, we're using our camera. And obviously the AI does not have a camera, so we're going to do things a little differently. It's very straightforward though. I'm going to show you how to split the logic, but I'm not actually going to create the logic until the next video because I wanted to take that slow and really explain it. So here we have the fire arrow. So again, change the player to character, rename it. And what we want to do now is there's a point you're going to see where we're actually going to need the camera. And I'm just going to look, and it's down here, I believe, just where we create and fire the live arrow. Yeah, so you can see over there, character dot camera handler. And this is because we're firing our arrow and putting it in a direction in respect to our camera. So what we're going to do is make a cast, and we're going to make different logic for the AI that doesn't utilize a camera, but instead utilizes where they're facing. But for now, we'll come back to that. Let's just go on to the next one. So right up here, let's go to the heal spell. And the first thing you want to do is delete everything from attempt to cast spell, and then just make a character manager variable, call it character, because this is deriving from a spell item. And as you know, we annihilated all of the values to pass through on the spell item except for the character manager. And again, do the same thing for successfully cast spell. And right here, we can change this up. So the animator handler.transform, we can just change that to character.transform. That is just a transform of the character we're casting a spell on. And is left-handed. I believe this is because we want to see if we're casting a spell with our offhand. So an animator handler, we would say character dot, I can't remember if it's called animation handler or animator handler. Character, animator manager. There we go. And now is left-handed. So let's just check this to make sure. So if I hover over this, yes. Okay, so this is for basically deciding if we cast with our left hand or not. So typically this is set to false. So we're going to say character dot is using left hand because now we keep track of that in our character manager. Much neater. All right, so this is a lot nicer. This is very, 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 very old code too, if you guys don't recall. Let's again do the same thing down here. We want to call only our character manager. And again, we can replace a lot of these variables. So let's annihilate all this and type in character. And then we can make the animator handler transform the character.transform because that is just the transform of our player. And then for player stats, heal amount. I don't think we have this is called heal player. So I doubt we have this on the character manager, but I will check, or I mean the character stats manager. Yeah, so we definitely do not. So let's go and basically take that from the player stats manager and put it on the character stats manager. And let's rename it to heal character instead of heal player so it's more general and we can use that for any kind of creature in the game. I'm going to take a sip of tea. Okay, so let's open up the character stats manager and the player stats manager. Come down to the player stats manager and find heal player. Let's make this an override void, even though it has nothing to override yet. Don't worry, we're getting to that. And let's change this to heal player to heal character. I should have renamed that, otherwise I'm going to have to fix it in other classes too. Don't make the same mistake I did. All right, paste the heal character thing here on the character stats manager, and instead of override, change it to a virtual void and delete the health bar because that's only used for the player. Keep the rest. Go back to the player and delete everything but the health bar and then call base.healCharacter. That way the player gets the same logic as any other character, but also they set their health bar to the appropriate healed amount. All right, so now back on the healing spell. Where is that? There we go. We can just type in heal character and pass the heal amount, and we're good to go. Now that works as intended, and that can be used for the AI as well. All right, so now over here on the projectile spell, this one's a little bit different, but again, don't worry. Let's start by making our character manager variable, call it character, and you're gonna see here, we can annihilate all this because the base only requires a character manager variable. And now we need to do a couple things. So let's start off by saying if character is using left hand, and then we know to instantiate the spell in our left or right hand. Animator handler can be character.character animator manager, and weapon slot manager can be character.character weapon slot manager. I'm going to take a sip of tea again. Okay, so basically the thing here is we're probably going to be utilizing the camera again because this is casting a projectile, and that is in respect to where the camera is facing unless you're locked on. So what we're going to do is make an exception here, and we're going to basically deviate the logic if we're casting from the perspective of an AI because they have no camera. But we won't worry about that right this second. Let's just get all these errors gone first, and then we'll come back, circle back around, and we'll start making the deviated logic for both. It will make perfectly clear sense in the end. If it doesn't already, I'm sure many of you know already what I'm doing and which way I am going about all of this. So why is that giving me grief? Character animate. Okay, I spelled it wrong. That's my fault. Not surprising. All right, so successfully cast spell, erase everything again, make a character manager variable, call it character, eradicate everything here on the successfully cast spell, and call it character. There we go. If character is using left hand, and now you will see where we have some deviation. You can see right away we're asking for a camera handler, and that is where we need to make some separate logic because this is not a thing an AI has access to. I can't speak. So make a variable of type player manager, call it player, and say that is equal to character as a player manager. And then we're going to say if player does not equal null, well then by that logic we must be using a player to operate this logic. Otherwise, we must be using an AI to operate this logic because the player manager is null. So I'm going to make a note up here. Handle the process if the caster is a player. And then I'm going to make a note down here saying handle the process if the caster is a non-player or an AI. And I'm going to make this note wherever we do this because this is how we're going to handle it from now. That way we can use the logic for either a player or an AI and still share things like spells and actions. So copy all of the logic and delete it and paste it in the player section. and then we're going to have to replace the word, weapon slot manager will be player.player weapon slot manager, and camera handler will be player.camera handler. That's it, really. Just basically add the word player in front of everything now. And then you're good to go. So we're not going to code in the logic for the AI in this episode. That will be in the next, because right now I just want to get all of these item-based actions and everything related to them in working order so that they're set up so we can just jump in. Don't need to do any more refactoring. We can start nailing down the logic. There we go. Camera handler. So if player.camera handler, yep, that's good. Thankfully, it's still named the same thing. We're good to go. Okay, so you know where to go and what to do for now. So I'm just going to drink some tea while I do this. But you can see here, if we're using the player, we're looking for the camera's rotation. And that's how we're judging where to cast the spell in what direction. That's how Souls does it too. So we're going to basically check the AI, and we're going to utilize their forward-facing direction, and also in respect to where you are standing in respect to them. So we always want the AI to be casting where they're looking. We don't want them to be able to cast, from the side of them while they're looking forward. That would be silly. And it will be very straightforward and easy to do. All right, that looks good. We're also going to do the same thing with them in terms of how they're going to fire arrows and projectiles, crossbow bolts, all that stuff. It will work very similar. And I've tested this a few ways in NEF, the other project I work on, my passion project, and I found that the way I do it now, I like a whole lot. All right, so let's erase that. And there we go. So down there will be the process if the caster is an AI, and we'll get that in the next video. So we'll save that. Let's finish eradicating these errors. I'm definitely, yep, there it is. That's the fire arrow section. And we also have this, there's no more heal player function. We changed that to heal character. And that's what I get for not actually right-clicking and renaming it. So that's good. I think that's the only place we call that, though. So let's save that. All right, so now here on the fire arrow, same thing happening. We have our character manager variable. That's fine. Let's make a player manager variable and say player is equal to character as player manager. All right, let's look where the logic starts to deviate. And thankfully, we have this all commented all nicely because this is newer code, and we're upping our game by commenting everything we do now. So if the player does not equal null, meaning if we do have a player operating the script, obviously we're going to use the player logic because a player is operating the script. Otherwise, we have an AI operating the script. We will want to use the AI's logic instead. So the same as the magics portion, copy all of the logic below this, delete it, and paste it in the if player does not equal null section. And now, basically go to wherever you need to and replace the word character with player, because I think we already came by and did a pass on this, renamed it. So we do have a player.camera handler, but we don't have a character.camera handler. So I'm just going to actually move this code down too so you can see it. I don't want it off screen, just in case you want to look at everything exactly as it is. And I'm going to take a sip of tea again. All right, so player.camera handler, player.camera handler. Again, same thing here, not character.player handler. Oh my god. Player.camera handler, there we go. Okay, that's good. And so player.player inventory manager. So you get the process now by this point. I believe too, this is the last one we need to do before we make the attack state. I think this is the last item-based action. So let's save that and see. Yes, okay, so on our combat stance state humanoid, which is our new combat stance state, change enemy attack action to item-based attack action. This is on our get new attack. This is because we're using a new attack system for these AI. They get it depending on the weapon they're holding, not depend on preset animations, as you know, I'm sure. So change this to item-based attack action and save that. And now we are good to go. And we also need to go now and make a new attack state. So let's change pursue target state to pursue target state humanoid, which is our new one. And again, this is on combat stance state humanoid. Don't get them mixed up because this is the advanced version that will basically make the AI act like a player. Now, under the attack state script, I'm actually just going to make an attack state humanoid, which again signifies our advanced attack state, typically used for AI that are going to act like the player. There we go. So let's just say AI attack state humanoid. And what we're going to do is we're going to open up the attack state, and we're going to copy all of the logic and paste it in the attack state humanoid, but we're going to change it. It's going to change very drastically. It will be actually more simplistic because most of the heavy lifting is done elsewhere. So under this, let's make a namespace SG, and then I'm going to make this derive from the state. And I'm just going to basically look into this now and copy it. I'm not going to take a deep dive into this in this episode. We're going to do that in the next one, but let's set it up so it's actually in working order. And in the next episode, we can start testing and putting in new features. So copy everything from your attack state and get ready to eradicate what's not needed, because we're going to do that straight away as well. For example, I think we're going to need the current attack, and we're going to need the functions in here, but we're going to strip them because some of the logic is just not required. I'm going to take a sip of tea. Okay, so current attack needs to be an item-based attack action, not enemy attack action. There we go. Again, the combat stand state and pursue target state should be humanoid. We don't need to do this is using left and right hand because we do that already. I'm just going to double check. Going to delete that. Yes, we do. We definitely do that. We do that when we're deciding the attack action. So we don't need this. All we need to do now is say, basically play the action. So I'll show you. We don't need that either. So we can just simply say current attack dot play attack action, or whatever it's called. Yeah, play attack action, pass the enemy, we're good to go. That's it. So same thing down here, combo. We don't need to set a new attack. The combo will play by itself if the attack can combo. So delete all of this and just simply copy the same code, paste it in here, and we should be good to go. This requires testing, which we will do in the next episode, but that should be fine. Right here, we don't need to check if the combo action is null, because we just need to check if this attack can combo at all, because we're handling it through our item-based actions. And we don't need to set a new attack. That should be fine. There we go. So basically the code is just a lightweight version of the previous code that just has much better logic. So if you guys made it this far, please drop a like and leave a comment. It does genuinely help my series so much. And if you've made it this far, you're probably the 1% of the people who have been on this journey for a very, 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 very long time. So for that, I want to say thank you for coming this far with me on all these weeks of releasing these videos. And I'm sure by now you're very acquainted with my voice, and that kind of makes us friends. You know what friends do for friends? They allow their friends to shamelessly plug their second channel. Mine, by the way, is just called Seb, and I post devlogs of Nephilim on it. You should go check it out and subscribe. All right, guys. I'll see you in the next one.